It's May, the season when millions of college students are scrambling to find a way to pay next year's tuition. Most will borrow, and the odds are good those loans will come from Sallie Mae. When Sallie Mae was created in 1972 as a quasi-governmental agency, its purpose was to encourage private banks to loan to students who were considered to be a credit risk. It didn't make the loans itself. But 9 years ago, Sallie Mae severed its ties to the government and became a private lender, much like a bank. That transformation has proved lucrative for Sallie Mae, to say the least. Since 1995, the company's stock price has gone up almost 2,000%. The question is, does Sallie Mae's success come at too steep a cost to students and taxpayers? Graduation, a day of achievement and promise. But for 2/3 of every graduating class, the future includes serious debt that can spiral out of control, as it did for Alan Collins.
I graduated with degrees in aerospace engineering in 1999. I borrowed about $45,000 for school. Since that time, my student loan debt has exploded to where currently I owe about $103,000.
In and out of work, Collins has struggled since he got his undergraduate degree. Sallie Mae let him defer payment on his loans for a while, but that meant compounding interest. When he finally defaulted, his loan was turned over to a guarantor. Collins knew that sometimes credit card companies will reduce the debt. He hoped the guarantor would do the same.
And I was refused at every step in the way.
Why?
I don't know why. They just refused. They said, no, you will pay the penalty, you will pay the fees, you will pay the interest on the penalties and fees.
For some borrowers, the system is unforgiving. But it has worked well for lenders like Sallie Mae, which has 10,000 employees in 19 states and manages $123 billion in student loans. Sallie Mae declined to give us an on-camera interview, saying they didn't think they'd get a fair shake. If you just can't pay, I mean, why does it make sense to squeeze you if you can't do it?
Well, the student lenders know that at the end of the day, if they've run out of, if they've exhausted their opportunities for you, the government's going to pay them. They're still going to make money. They're guaranteed.
Guaranteed because Congress, wanting to help students who otherwise would not qualify for a loan, created the Guaranteed Loan Program for private lenders, under which the government covers most of the student loans made by Sallie Mae.
It may be called private by the people in the system, but it's not private at all.
What do you call it?
Frankly, it's a socialist-like system.
Michael Dannenberg analyzes student loan policy at the New America Foundation, a nonpartisan think tank.
It's not as if this private entity is assuming any risk. No. The law makes sure that this so-called private entity has virtually no risk.
On top of that, Sallie Mae also owns some of the biggest collection agencies in the country. Once a student borrower goes into default, the government pays Sallie Mae all the principal and compounded interest that have accrued. The loan then passes into the collection phase. If Sallie Mae is the collector, it gets to keep up to 25% of whatever is recovered. In 2005, nearly a fifth of its revenue came from its collection business.
Sallie Mae makes money if you pay back on time, and Sallie Mae makes money if you don't pay back on time.
Elizabeth Warren, a professor of bankruptcy law at Harvard Law School, says it's a mistake to allow Sallie Mae to be both a lender and a collector.
It shouldn't be the case that Sallie Mae gets to play every hand at the poker table while the government is the one that keeps anteing up the money. But let's be clear, that by itself isn't enough. We have to decide collectively, as a country, do we want to encourage the young people who are trying to get college diplomas? And if the answer to that is yes, the way to encourage them is not to double and triple the amount that they owe when they get into financial trouble.
By law, private lenders must offer payment options, but that usually means the loans just balloon. So even though 95% do pay up over time, many are burdened with heavy debt. In a statement, Sallie Mae told us it makes far more money from those who pay on time than from those who default, like Alan Collins.
If you can't afford the payments, why don't you go out and just get a better paying job? You have the education, You have the wherewithal.
I'm seeking a better paying job. Believe me, I would love nothing more than to make enough money to be able to pay this debt. I would like nothing more.
Sally May says Collins could have tried a lot harder to pay. He works at a nonprofit and recently got a second job as a technical writer.
Are you depressed? Is that kind of stymied you from being more aggressive?
Yeah. I mean, it really does. It does affect your self-esteem. I mean, there's a certain shame involved. And when you have to dance around the question about creditworthiness, you know, everywhere you go, it really takes its toll.
In a horrible catch-22, he says his credit troubles with Sally Mae mean he can't get a job as an aerospace engineer.
It would be very tough for me to get anything but the lowest level of security clearance with my credit record destroyed as it is.
Collins simply stopped paying. Now he has started a website, studentloanjustice.org, for people like Britt Napoli.
Here's our condo during the earthquake.
Who was wiped out in the California earthquake of 1994.
I lost everything. I lost my dwelling. I lost my automobile.
You went immediately from solvency to default?
I received some assistance from FEMA. I received some assistance from Red Cross, but I did not receive any sympathy from Sally Mae.
And nobody said, this is a special case because this poor man is destitute and homeless because of the earthquake?
No one.
Nothing.
Nothing.
On loans of $38,000 from Sally Mae, he says he now owes $71,000. While these borrowers are suffering, former Sally Mae CEO Al Lord told an audience in 2003 that he, at least, was making a bundle.
It'd be very hard for me to try to tell you that what I make is not a lot of money.
Said to be worth $250 million, Al Lord is building his own private golf course and made a bid to buy a professional baseball team. Over the last 13 years, taxpayers have spent $40 billion on guaranteed student loans. Sally Mae wouldn't tell us how much of that went to them.
Sally Mae. So we've helped millions of students plan.
It is true that Sally Mae performs an important service. It has helped 21 million students pay for college.
But there is a less costly way to make student loans called the Direct Loan Program run by the Department of Education. Sally Mae disputes this, but studies by 3 different government agencies say it costs taxpayers about 5 times less per student loan.
Still, most universities guide their students to private lenders like Sally Mae. One reason is because they offer incentives to some of the schools, which Michael Dannenberg calls
Kickbacks.
Kickbacks? I mean...
Payments, cash payments, to colleges.
That's legal.
Yeah, it's done through a loophole called the School as Lender program, but it's legal.
School as Lender is a program Congress sanctioned that allows private lenders like Sally Mae to pay universities money to help administer the Sally Mae loans. In turn, universities steer their students to Sally Mae.
Are you saying the colleges are fronting, in a way, then, for the Sally Mae type
A number of them are through the School as Lender program, and they make a pretty penny on it.
Universities are required to pass a small portion of that money along to students in the form of cheaper fees and student grants. Republican Congressman Thomas Petri sponsored legislation to permit the Direct Loan Program to offer similar incentives.
All we're asking is that the lower cost program be allowed to compete on a more equal basis, and we think the result will be that we'll save money for the taxpayer, and it will provide exactly the same benefits and a few more to students.
But he says Sally Mae lobbied to get his bill killed.
Would you say that the Sally Mae's lobby is one of the most effective up here?
Well, there's no question about it in the education area.
Since 2002, the company and its employees have doled out over $2.7 million to congressmen and their political action committees, including over $200,000 to House Majority Leader John Boehner and his PAC. Over the years, Congress has written laws that give the student loan industry special advantages.
If you don't pay Sally Mae, then Sally Mae gets to come after you in ways that virtually no other creditor in America can do.
Did you even consider just going into bankruptcy, Alan?
I thought about it, But in the case of student loans, it doesn't matter because bankruptcy is not an option for the vast majority of borrowers for student loans.
The bankruptcy laws were written, once again, to give this extraordinary protection to the student loan agencies, to Sallie Mae. The idea behind it, again...
Special law just for them on
a
this.
special law just for those who make student loans. Credit card companies don't get that kind of protection, despite all their lobbying. Home mortgage lenders don't get that kind of protection.
And Congress passed more laws that squeeze the student borrowers.
Suppose you get hurt and you have to live on disability insurance from your Social Security.
The government can attach that. I asked if there are any other cases where Social Security funds are garnished.
Only child support.
But all these special protections have produced results. The default rate, over 20% in the late 80s, is now down below 5%.
Why wouldn't Sallie Mae say, look, this is a law that worked?
It's worked very well for Sallie Mae. It's worked very well for the federal government, but it hasn't worked well for the students.
It hasn't worked well for some students, like Lene Brown. She got loans from Sallie Mae starting in 1985 to go to college and then to film school.
How much will you have paid them when you're finished?
Over $250,000. $262,383, I think it is, to be exact.
For an original loan of what?
$60,000.
She started falling behind in her payments early on.
My sophomore year in undergraduate school, I was diagnosed with an illness. It does affect my daily existence, if you will. And it does affect the choices I make, or can make. And yet there's no consideration for people's lives.
Lene Brown has never gone into default, but she may never catch up.
I think the general idea of student loan program is excellent. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I was able to get an education. I think the problem with the system is it doesn't seem to keep in mind that people have human problems. Things happen.
It's a system that Congress created with all good intentions to help kids go to college. But it's ended up saddling hundreds of thousands with debt while guaranteeing that a lender like Sallie Mae can become what Fortune magazine says is one of the most profitable companies in the world.
How do you lose in a game like that? It's a great business model, right? I win from here, I win from there. It's the protected market.
It's not a free market.
It's a market in which the protection goes to the lender and the students are served up like turkeys at the Thanksgiving dinner.